afternoon. My name is Dina Pearson. I'm a licensed practical nurse who works with the elderly. In working with the elderly, I have experienced patients that have been in such excruciating pain that they have asked either me or God to end their lives. Little do they know, this is a legal act in some states and some countries. In the United States, it is legal for a doctor to administer certain medications to a patient to end their lives if it is their choice. Those states include Washington, Montana, and Oregon. Other countries include China, Canada, and South Africa. There are also some states and some countries that are trying to make this act legal. The definition of a physician-assisted suicide or euthanasia is the process in which a physician or doctor administers a medication to a patient in order to end their lives. The only catch is that the patient has to administer the drug themselves. Also, a patient has to have a life expectancy of 6 months or less, be terminally ill, or be in excruciating pain. If it's okay for a doctor to administer medication to help a patient kill themselves, why does society look at suicide, self-inflicted suicide, as such a disgrace? They look at the patient and they say, you know, what could have been so bad that this person had to decide to take their lives? What's the difference whether they do it or if a doctor does it? It's still suicide one way or the other. All too many times there have been people who have gone to jail for being an accessory to murder, which means that they might have been at the scene of the crime, but they might not have committed the crime. Those people are in jail serving years. The doctor has actually aided in murdering a patient, and that doctor gets off scotch-free and lives their life like nothing ever happened. Again, the life expectancy for a patient who is interested in euthanasia has to be 6 months or less. But what if the doctor's wrong? For example, I have a patient who was given 15 days to live. 3.5 years later, he's still alive. Now, what if this option was available to him? What if he decided to take his life? His family would have missed out on a big portion of his life. They're there visiting him every day and actually happy that he is alive. There are alternatives to either wanting to commit suicide or wanting help from a doctor to commit suicide. There are so many medications out there, strong medications, that help patients to manage pain so that they don't have to suffer. Also, we have an organization called hospice. Hospice is an organization that comes in when a doctor diagnoses a patient and tells them that they have a few days to live. What they do is they come in, they provide comfort measures, and they make sure that the patient is comfortable up to the time leading to their demise. A nurse is usually at the patient's bedside for 24 hours around the clock to provide the family with updates. For instance, if the person looks like they're going to pass within the next couple of hours, the nurse may get on the phone and say, you know what, listen, your relative looks like it won't be too long, so you can head over and spend time with them. They also have a CNA, a nurse's assistant at the bedside to help the patient stay clean and maintain their dignity until they die. Another good thing about hospice is that sometimes, again, the doctor is wrong. The patient may be put on hospice and pull out of the situation and live another year. I've seen that happen also. I've seen a patient be placed on hospice because the doctor said they had a few days to live, and a year later, they're still alive, and they're then removed from the program. Hospice likes to use a medication called morphine, which is also called Roxanol. Roxanol serves as a dual purpose. It actually can slow down respirations if a resident was to go into respiratory distress, and it could help them to manage pain. In my opinion, nature should take its course. I don't believe that we should live by the double standard that it's okay for a doctor to take somebody's life, but everyone else has to be charged as being an accessory to murder or as committing a disgraceful suicide. I don't believe that euthanasia should be legal, because I believe that everybody has an alternative. There are other options that, somebody could explore. So in short, I want you to always remember, the doctor is not always right. Any questions?
I have another question. You mentioned that there's different drugs that can be taken to ease pain or to help in the process. Now, my question to you is, what if that drug doesn't work? Can we still apply that? For example, if my aunt or somebody not feeling very well, she's very weak, and even though she has a drug or whatever the drug is, and it's not working for them to an extent, or they're on it so much in somewhat of a vegetative state, would that be okay for that patient to receive that? Wouldn't that be okay for the patient to receive that procedure if they choose to do it?
If they choose to do it. Well, I am a strong believer that everybody does have a choice in life. You can decide to do basically whatever you want. But what I'm encouraging today, for if it's yourself that ends up in a situation or a family member, is that you explore other options. If one drug is not working, chances are there's another one much stronger that can help manage pain. So my advice again is to explore all options before deciding, okay, I can't take it anymore, I want to die.
Okay.
Yes.
It's not really a question, it's kind of a statement.
Sure.
But I think it should be okay for people when the doctor tells them their body's definitely shutting down and they're just in so much pain that they just can't take it anymore. I think that should be okay if they're at the point where their body is starting to shut down.
Right.
And at that point it doesn't make any sense to keep giving them more medication when they're almost dying anyway.
Right. Well, again, I have to give you another example that I've actually experienced. I had a patient who, I walked into the room, this patient was completely unresponsive. Again, in a hospital, it's a little bit easier to diagnose a patient that's going to be passing away sooner than in a nursing home. We don't have all of the necessary equipment. But this patient was unresponsive. She was completely blue. We called the doctor, who was actually in the building, and the doctor said, you know what, put her on hospice crisis care right now. She seems to be shutting down. I don't think she's going to make it. Her respirations were about 40, which in a normal adult should be between 12 and 22. She was in respiratory distress. We didn't think she was going to make it. Her blood pressure plummeted. We put the patient on hospice care. She was started on the morphine Roxanol. Her respirations decreased. For a few days, she was in limbo, but within a week, she pulled out of it.
How long did she live after that?
She's still alive to this day.
Was she in pain?
Well, she was moaning a lot before we put her on crisis care, so we did assume that she was in pain. She was unable to relay that to us, but we gave her the Roxanol. And actually, she did stop the moaning. The Roxanol is given as needed. Mm-hmm. So if the patient can't say, hey, I'm in pain, what we do is we look for signs and symptoms of pain, such as grimacing or moaning, and then we would administer the Roxanol at that time. Okay.
Yeah, I have a statement. I have an aunt that was put on hospice, and she lived 5 years afterwards. So.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
We've had patients also, we put them on crisis care again, and then, after a year, they're required to be taken off of the program because hospice is only dedicated to end-of-life stages. So if the patient survives after a year, they're then removed from the program.
Okay,
Okay? Well, thank you very much for your time.
thank you.
Thank you.